Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. As always, my name is Nexus, and it is my absolute and utmost pleasure to be here for another AMA Ask Us Anything with the Wolves of Alt Street. Today, we are presenting Little Orbit and ships that fight underground. This project is, in fact, a game with tokens built around it, rather than tokens with a game built around it. And this project has a fascinating history that goes back much longer and much further than most people would initially realize. As always, the information contained in this program is not meant to constitute financial advice. It is here for your information and entertainment purposes only, so use it as you will. And with that said, it is my pleasure to welcome Matt Scott from Little Orbit. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. I'm just happy to have you guys here in general. Now, I'd like to begin by asking you to go ahead and tell us anything that you would like the community and future viewers to know to get to know you and the team.
Sure. So Little Orbit has been around since 2010. It was created out of a game dev studio that I owned, which started back in 2023. So we've been professionally running game studios and publishing for almost 20 years, and we've done about 22 projects released. At one point, we were the publisher of record for Mattel and for DreamWorks, Cartoon Network, a couple other folks, and we've done projects with Disney and Warner, and full retail, all the way down to handheld and things like that. We made a pretty big pivot in 2017 where we got out of the sort of licensed space, which is a space that I cut my teeth on. You have to kind of jump in. It's very difficult to miss deadlines there because you're usually timed to a toy release or a movie release or something like that. So I feel like it's a great way to get a start and really learn how to get games out the door. But we wanted something that we could sink our teeth into a bit more, bit bigger games, and so we shifted into online multiplayer PvP shooters. And so we ended up acquiring a network called GamersFirst.com and a game called APB alongside that.
Oh, yes.
And around the same time is when we got involved with a project originally called Descent Underground, which is what eventually became Ships That Fight Underground.
I, in particular, since you brought up Descent, I have to mention that's kind of something that biases me towards your project a great deal. When I was 5 years old, that was the first time I had ever seen three-dimensional models on my computer that were animated. And before that, I only knew Warcraft and pixel kind of sprite-based games like Doom. So when I saw
Sure.
Descent and I experienced that three-dimensional space for the first time, it changed the way that I would think about gaming and technology pretty much forever.
Yeah, it's kind of an unsung hero back in the mid '90s. I mean, those guys, Matt and Mike, Parallax was the name of the developer, and you see people like Carmack and a lot of other industry veterans get a lot of praise for Doom and for Quake, and rightfully so. But I mean, those guys were right in there at the same time, inventing six degrees of freedom, which is just a fancy way of saying drone-like controls. So, in a sort of a zero-G type environment, the ships can go up without tilting up and using thrusters to go up. You can sort of operate it like a drone. But they did some just fantastic stuff, like you said, full 3D, great level design. Descent and some of the games that followed were pretty genre.
Absolutely.
Creating genre breaking.
What's the 100 Days connection? How did you guys with Little Orbit hook up with 100 Days?
That's a great question. One of the founders of 100 Days is a very long-term friend of mine, very dear. I consider him family. And sort of, we'll get more into the story of S.T.F.U and how it sort of got here. But I've known him for about 10 years, and he's obviously big into crypto and pulled me into crypto alongside a couple other people. And I've been, working in the crypto space as an investor myself for the last 2 years. But we went to, we finished this game. This game was done last year and ready to ship as a free-to-play game. And, I was talking to a couple of different people, but this gentleman in particular, sat me down and was like, "Hey, have you looked at GameFi? Have you looked at, play to earn or crypto mechanics?" And we kind of started this whole deep dive. And so I think it was a natural fit, frankly, to kind of get involved with the 100 Days guys because, we're new to crypto. It's our first time, although, we're going to talk about our strategy and how I feel like blockchain mechanics really fit where we're headed as a company overall. And I'll qualify that too. I think there's clear-cut use cases I really love, and then there's some things we're not going to do. And so there's a fairly clear lane that I want to take with blockchain. But just over a couple months, he introduced me to Arsh and Ro and the guys, and I liked what they were doing. I liked the idea of this sort of marketing investment crypto group that could go out and partner. And so that's how we got hooked up, and really with the partnership specifically, because I know this has come up on several of the AMAs for Astro holders. We had a bunch of conversations because I think we were early in. Like I said, I've been long-term friends with one of the founders, and I think we were early in to announce the partnership, but we really didn't have a solid plan of what that looked like right away. But once we, sat down in person, a series of in-person meetings, they're based up here where I'm at, and like all of us at the table wanted to do something meaningful for Astro holders, like not just kind of like, oh, we're going to hand wave at that idea of partnership, but something really meaningful. And so that's where we landed. I think, I think they did a poll at some point on their Discord channel of like, how much of the revenue, do we think we should get? And it was like 5%, 10%, that sort of thing. And so I think 30% was a number that we felt would move the needle and really blow people away. And it made sense. They're doing kind of the heavy lift for us. We're using their platform for the NFT sale, and so if you're an Astro holder right now, I think the idea of getting USDC added to the 100 Days treasury and then having that get distributed to people that bought in, based on staking, I think it's just a really powerful way to reward the community.
I completely agree. Getting more into the genesis of the kind of, we'll call it the crypto additions to a project that already existed, because as you mentioned, Descent Underground was basically done. It was ready to go, but there were a myriad of reasons why it couldn't be released in the current state. I guess what I'm really wondering is what specifically inspired you guys to inject a Web3 blockchain economy into perhaps the legacy game of a classic franchise?
Sure. That's going to be, I'm going to try to break this up. I don't want to talk too much because I could take the whole time answering that question. But I think there were a couple different things. One of the things which was a bit of a negative was, through the history of the project, we ended up having to settle out with the original developers. And part of that, we ended up going back to Interplay to get the license again. So as part of some of the things that happened, Interplay had terminated the ability to use the name Descent. And so our understanding was always that, hey, once all of the legal back and forth with the developer, the original guys that started the project, once that was all done, we would just go, whoever, kind of would lead would go get the rights. And unfortunately, that just turned out not to be the case. We tried to do that. We had a series of discussions, and I'm not going to get into why, but Interplay would not honor the original terms, and so so we had to kind of make a choice of, how to proceed with the project. We still, there are legacy backers, Kickstarter backers, early access backers, and we felt like we needed to deliver the game they paid for. And so we just chose to rename it. And the reason that's relevant and we were a little tongue in cheek with S.T.F.U. I don't think that's lost on anybody, but
so were the Parallax developers, because if I recall, that was the original demo name in the 90s.
Right. It was the original code name of the new development group that picked up the rights. And so before they got the rights to Descent, that's what it was called internally. So we love that name. I think it is kind of, tongue in cheek, but having stepped back from the legacy of something like Descent, it allowed us to kind of take a look at the game through a new lens. And I think in some cases that original legacy was holding back what the game wanted to be.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is, at its inception with, the Kickstarter that was done back in 2015, it was always meant to be this sort of reimagining of the 6 Degrees of Freedom genre. And in so many ways it is already, even for free-to-play users before we added blockchain. The original Descent, which was in the mid-90s, like I mentioned, was a land game and a single-player game. So single-player, one ship, no progression. The levels just get steadily harder and harder. You're basically navigating through these sort of twisting, turning, very three-dimensional levels in 0G, and
very labyrinthine.
You're picking up that's a perfect term actually for them. And you're picking up boosts and ammo to kind of solve the level. There's no state or progression or experience level or
the only
MMO.
progression that Descent actually had was that you could keep what you managed to hold on to between levels, and you could bring it into the next level. But that's about the extent of it. It didn't go any further.
Correct. Exactly right. So if I happen to get concussive missiles or certain types of weapons, I could carry those over. But I think if you died, you lost that, right? Like
you'd have to go salvage it if you were able,
right?
Which you lost a life and started back with level 1 lasers. And in order to get all of your cool upgrades back, you had to go to the spot where you died. It was essentially an EverQuest corpse run in space.
I was about to say EverQuest, yeah, with no XP penalty. But yeah, basically, and so. What I liked about the whole reason we got involved with the project to begin with was this amazing idea of taking that initial core game with fantastic mechanics. It's a shooter. I mean, it's really fun. Those labyrinthine levels, right, are fun to hide in and snipe people, and all the multiplayer. The PvP is effectively the land game, right? You selected a map, you jumped in, it was all deathmatch.
Absolutely.
But taking that game and upgrading it or reimagining it. So the idea of like 20 different types of ships, right? So coming up with the idea of class or role-based ships so that you could do team modes where, okay, we're going to get a team of 5 and someone's going to be an assault ship, and we're going to have a defender ship, maybe a hauler, right? You're going to assemble 5 different players playing different types of ships that fit into this style of gameplay. And then all of a sudden, we kind of came, we had a bunch of other options there, which meant stateful progression, right? Playing through, leveling up the ship, having tech tree upgrades that are unique to each ship type. So if I've got a Saber, for instance, which is an assault ship, then I can upgrade certain parts of the ship. It's more like a skill tree now, right? I'm winnowing into the kind of gameplay I want at the cost of not taking, other skills, right? So I'm having to choose my path, my tech tree upgrade. So all of that and a fairly sophisticated single player experience with this sort of robust multiplayer offering, that was what the original game was. And then came late last year, we made a breakthrough with the previous developer. We had spent a year in development, polishing up the game, getting it ready to launch, and I put the brakes on. Is literally in November last year, where we were at the doorstep of pulling the trigger on launching just the free-to-play game. And at that point, we had hired a blockchain designer, and I'll talk a little bit. I think it's probably a good segue to talk about my philosophy as it comes to GameFi,
certainly,
or blockchain and games, because I think that there is a huge stigma of NFTs or blockchain in traditional game markets, right? If you sit down with a gamer, you're going to hear some real hate
and
for
this,
NFTs, and it's going to be Go ahead.
I was just going to say the source of this hate is definitely going to come from the way big companies, for instance, I'll call Ubisoft out, because their Quartz system was released on perhaps one of their least popular games, and I believe it cost them a lot of money, and I don't think they made anything on that.
Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster, but I think there's two main misperceptions there. The first is that gamers feel like their favorite game, let's say Call of Duty or even the Ubisoft game, they feel like their favorite game is going to get infiltrated with gimmicky NFT breeding mechanics, or the gameplay is not going to be as fun, right? So if you love a certain game and then you see this big trend, and then you worry like, oh no, what are they going to do to my favorite game? They're going to integrate all these really horrible mechanics I don't like. That's a legitimate fear. It's a little bit misplaced in that I don't think any major companies are actually doing that. I think maybe they were making like a variation of a game, or they were doing some other things. I don't think they were taking the main game and kind of mucking it up with weird mechanics. But it's still a legitimate fear, right? If you're a fan of the franchise. And then the second fear, which gamers have, is that crypto or Web3 would be an additional monetization method. So in addition to the battle pass they're paying for, in addition to the microtransactions they're paying for, the free-to-play microtransactions, now they're going to have to pay for crypto transactions. And like, I think they viewed it as this like kind of cash grab scheme. And so again, legitimate fear, right? Like that's fair.
Yes, and I dogpile on top of that the pay-to-win element as well. Because a lot of mobile games, and to be fair, a lot of Web3 NFT mobile games have a power component that comes from the NFTs that's not at all insignificant.
Yeah, and it really just, I mean, we've been operating, regular PvP free-to-play shooters now since 2018, and that's always a conversation we're always having internally with design when we're building out a system, is how can we avoid the pitfalls of a pay-to-win scheme? Because in free-to-play, like your gut, right, if you're chasing the dollar, is to go put something that's super powerful up for sale and just let people sort of buy power, which is exactly the definition of pay-to-win, because it's going to sell, and you don't want to do that. It's toxic for the community, especially in PvP. So you have to be really, really careful. Where I do think pay-to-win gets more traction, it's less stigmatized, is in something like Warframe, where you've got like PVE co-op. Like there's not a loser there, right? It's you and a buddy. Exactly. So you can let power levels get out of control. You're never damaging another live player by beating them, right? In a PvP co-op situation, it's just you and your buddy going on a team match trying to beat the AI. And if you bought something that's going to help you win there, there's far less stigma there. Generally it's entertainment value because you're not damaging another player. But when you have live PvP or esports, like it's a huge thing. It is probably the number one design challenge that you have to solve for a free-to-play game. And so we've seen that pitfall, we've dealt with it, and certainly as we took a step back and looked at S.T.F.U, that was top of mind.
Okay, that does lead me.
I guess,
go for it.
Really quickly, I'll button that up.
No,
One of the
go
things
for it.
we came to over this last year in looking at GameFi and where things have been was that, and we put some, if anybody wants to go look at our stuff, I think we've erred on the side of too much information at this point, but playstfu.com, I'll shill the website a little bit, but playstfu.com is the site with all the information on it for the project as a whole. Obviously, we're doing this sort of entry-level NFT drop on Friday, which we're really excited about, and there's whitelisting up there on the site. You can get whitelisted for the site, but more importantly, our white paper is up there. It's super extensive. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the mechanics and tokenomics behind the game and what our thought process was. But in addition to that, we posted 4 Medium articles. We've got another one coming out soon. The first of which is this Web 2.5 hybrid concept, which I'm really excited about, and there may be some other groups out there doing something similar. I don't know. It's definitely something that we have designed and championed internally as a solution to everything we just talked about, right? The solution to pay to win, the solution to this sort of stigma that traditional gamers have with NFTs, and effectively that concept. This is why I got so excited. Like we kind of put the brakes on the pure free-to-play version of S.T.F.U, we took a step back and we said, what is it that blockchain does uniquely as a solution that you can't get anywhere else? And my answer to that question is it has transparency and it has ownership. And the ability to reward our players who make content based on the success of our game is something that we can't do in free-to-play, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about UGC. So user-generated content is something that we're already super well steeped in. APB, in my opinion, it's one of our other games, has the single best character customization UGC system in the world. I will say that hands down. I'll debate anybody who wants to say otherwise. I mean, I love games like platforms like Minecraft and Roblox, but anybody who has sat in the character customization system and the clothing editor and the vehicle editor and APB knows that it's effectively Adobe Creative Cloud inside a game.
Absolutely,
it's bonkers.
And anyone who's been reading or watching videos about All Points Bulletin, APB, over at any point, any retrospective, any YouTuber who's played that will tell you the gameplay might be questionable, the connections might be questionable, all sorts of things about it might have been issues over the years, but the one thing no one can ever fault is the customization.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's an area where that's why we took the step back. That's why we took the pause, and sort of why I say like what this game wants to be, and that is what we conceptualized was a blockchain hybrid, sort of Web 2.5, which we'll talk about in a sec, where players can create content, namely they can create their own levels. And so looking at something like Warframe, except for you've got players creating the maps and then teams of 3 trying to invade those maps and competing for play to earn or even create to earn token rewards. And I think that is something that only blockchain can solve. So if you ask me, when your players are creating content and they're helping make your platform or your game successful, having the ability to pass back rewards to them via a wallet or otherwise through blockchain, that's it. That's the single best use case I can think of. And there's plenty of others, but from a GameFi perspective, I love the idea of being able to participate with our community and our players in that way. And so that's why we put the pause. That's why we literally invented a mode, leverages all the same game mechanics we already had, but it does a couple things. One is it's PVE co-op. So you're never damaging another live player by winning, right? You can play with your friends. It's a super cool mode with 3 people. So it's basically you plus 2 friends trying to get through this effectively like a tower defense style level design kit that we're giving to landowners. So it's our version of Metaverse Land, but you get this level design kit where you can build out that level with turrets and nanobots and defenders, and you place the resources that have to get harvested, and then the team comes in, they harvest those materials, they try to blow the reactor and get out, and then that's the tug of war over those play to earn rewards. And it's awesome. Like, I just feel like that having that mode at the center, it's not something we could have done 2 years ago. And so I feel like we're sort of fulfilling, at least on my end, the dream of what this game can be with really high-end user generation, content generation tools. And so then very briefly, Web 2.5, you can read about it on the Medium article, is just our solution of saying, hey, gamers, we know you've played free to play. We know you like your favorite mechanics. Try this. So you can come join the game. You can be fully free to play. The ships that we sell, we even built it into the lore. So, in the lore of S.T.F.U, we've got these asteroids out there. They're owned by these big sort of mega corporations. And you can buy your ship from the corporations. We have corp ships, right? And like most corporations, we know they're not going to share all the rewards for your hard work with you. And so those are free to play ships. Basically, they are functionally identical to our blockchain ships. They do not. There's no gameplay value of having a blockchain ship versus having a free to play ship. The only difference is the free to play ship doesn't leave your account. So you're basically leasing it from the corporation, and you can play, and you can even do the asteroid runs. You just can't participate in the play to earn rewards because ostensibly the corporation's keeping those. And then we have chain ships. So you can read about this on our site or on the Medium article there. But the chain ships effectively are NFTs, and those are full blockchain assets where you can trade those. But again, functionally identical to their free-to-play counterparts. What I love is that I want those two communities to actually value each other. So on the free-to-play side, they get to play user-generated content. They get to play these asteroid runs that are created by players who are participating in the play-to-earn mechanics, right? But the token holders and the blockchain players also get a lot of value out of our free-to-play players, because what we're going to do, and I don't know if anybody else is doing this, it's a first for us, is we're going to take every dollar that comes in as revenue from the free-to-play side of things and convert it to USDC. And then that gets added to our treasury. So from a transparency standpoint, all the players in the community will see not just the revenue we make on the NFT side, but they'll also see our free-to-play revenue. And with the USDC in our treasury, we'll be buying back our own S.T.F.U token as a mechanism to, one, both hold the value, but two, and more importantly, replenish the play to earn or create to earn rewards that we give out. So our token S.T.F.U, which we're launching later this year, is the primary driver of what we give out as a reward to our play to earn players. Some game projects haven't really taken a look too far into the future. They design out their treasury and they say, great, we're going to get a 2 to 3 year runway. And then once the play to earn reward part of the treasury is spent, then it's gone. Ostensibly, there's no way to refill that bucket. So this was our solution for, one, holding the value, but two, replenishing the play to earn rewards by taking our free to play earn currency, USDC, spending that out of the treasury to refill the tokens.
Okay. I'm curious, is there a pipeline that takes a free-to-play player from a corporate ship to a blockchain ship?
What we're hoping is that will happen organically. Yes, I'm going to say yes. You can never convert a corp ship to a chain ship. That would be cheating. We'd have to be holding some of the minted ships in reserve to be able to do that. And we may explore some ways to do that, right? Like just hold aside. But all of the chain ships they're still minted in limited quantities. So in general, the way I like to look at it is on the corp side, the corp ships are unlimited quantity but limited time sale. On the chain side, they're limited quantity, but they'll be up for sale as long as they're available. Right, so functionally identical, but two sides the same thing. What we're hoping is that a player will come in. It's a real game, right? This is a finished shooter. They're going to have fun. They'll look at it. They'll make the first couple free-to-play purchases, and then they'll sit back and they'll go, "Wow, I really wish I would have bought the chain ship because I could be doing the same exact asteroid runs." But instead of harvesting just the free-to-play resources, I'd also be able to participate in our on-chain resources like Thorite and Nano.
Okay. That gets me straight into the tokenomics, which is definitely something the community here is going to be most curious about. One of the 3 tokens, as you mentioned, is listed as Nano. That's not Nano, is it? Like XNO Nano? That's a different Nano?
No. It's our in-game resource. No, it's a different Nano. It's an in-game resource that we put on chain, right? So shame on us for taking a symbol that might confuse people. We'll have to look at that. We may change it to say like Nano S.T.F.U or something to call it out as our game. We don't want people inadvertently buying something thinking they're buying something else. And to be fair, I don't think we're listing that on any exchange. It's just an on-chain resource that we can move around via the wallets. So that's the intention. The only one publicly exchanged is the S.T.F.U token. That's the plan.
Okay, awesome. At this
Nano,
point,
Nano and Thorite are some of the crafting resources. So
yes,
the game has a really deep meta. Like I said, in the original conceived design, we had these tech tree upgrades. One of the things we've been able to do since then is we added the idea of mods. So once you get a ship, you can start spending resources that you've harvested. So you get this through normal gameplay, but you can craft various mods. So tech trees are ship specific, mods are not. So you can craft mods and then slot them into any of the ships you have to, again, augment their gameplay a little bit, kind of lean them to. I like to believe that based on the tech tree and the mods, you can influence the ship by maybe 5, 6, 7, 8%. But a good player, if you give them a basic ship, and a bad player, if you give them the quote unquote best ship in the game, the good player is always going to win. The skill cap is there.
So the skill value and the metric, especially for the PvP segments, that's going to factor in a big deal.
Yeah, and we even in some cases we may even lock some mod slots so that they're inactive during PvP, just as a way to gameplay balance. We don't want anybody having any feel bad moments of, hey, that guy spent,
$1,000 or more.
Right, exactly. We want that to be as fair as possible, and we have all the experience of running primarily PvP shooters in the past. One thing I am excited about is our legendary ships. So it's just an idea. It's something we do in other games, and it's an idea we've adapted for S.T.F.U. But it's a ship that's a chain ship that has a unique mod already slotted on it. So typically a mod that has kind of a plus and a minus. So it's not a straight up upgrade. It's you're trading maybe less armor for more speed, but it's something unique to that mod with also a custom skin and custom cosmetics on it. So they're typically thematics. Like one of them I know that we're going to be showing off here in the next day as part of the pilot's license buildup is Gladius. So it's our first Saber legendary. And so it's a legendary version of our Saber with its own unique skin, kind of thematically based on the Roman Gladius weapon. And so it's got a cool mod on it that does some cool stuff there. But I think we have an article going up tomorrow, because if you're interested in the pilot's license, which we hope people are, Friday the pilot's license is select, limited quantity, but they're discounted. And one of the things we want people to know is like everything you're getting. These things are so chock full of rewards in them. So it's it's an NFT that then airdrops more NFTs every month as we get closer to launch and once we do launch. So even the Iron tier, which is the lowest tier pilot's license, it comes with I think 5 legendary ships and 5 preset ships, all of which are NFTs in their own right. So those can all be sold separately. And there's a small S.T.F.U. airdrop included once the token goes live. And then the next level up, the Thorite, actually has a small piece of land, which means they can jump right into the asteroid run mechanics, building out their own piece of land and being able to participate in the create to earn rewards there. And then the Nano tier, which is our biggest, there's not very many of those, but that one comes with a large piece of land and a sizable S.T.F.U. drop. And I think in the white paper or in the Medium article, I know we've actually broken down the value behind all of it and what we expect the full value there. I think the Nano, the biggest one is 20 legendaries, which is one of each. So it's I think it's 2 years worth of legendary stuff. But the cool part I think is the game is done. I like to think of us as kind of Star Atlas's little brother, but we're coming out this year. So
that's so exciting.
Yeah.
I just have a couple more questions from my docket because your answers have been so thorough. So thank you very much for that. A couple softballs and then I'll go to the hardball. What kind of space game stuff can we expect in the space underground? Because we've talked about resource gathering as a component of the game, and there's going to be some mining too, presumably. But I guess what I'm wondering is, when I'm out and collecting my stuff, if I escape, how much of the stuff do I get to use in the game versus trading on blockchain for something else?
Yeah, everything's usable in game. So everything you collect, that is the metagame. There's a kind of the flywheel of playing missions. So you ended up pledging to various contacts throughout the asteroid field, and then you're going to go on missions that generate resources. So depending on which corporations you're pledging to and doing missions for, you're going to get different resources, and that all factors into crafting and leveling up and gaining ship experience, and which is the tech trees, but also the mods, right? And all of that is usable. I think from a gameplay perspective, it plays again a little bit like Warframe, a little bit like Destiny. All of the combat, all the gameplay is inside, I call it interior space. So you're never in sort of open space, sort of flying around aimlessly. You're in these sort of hollowed out portions of asteroids where there are bases or mining facilities, or caverns, labyrinthine sort of tunnels that you're exploring. So a little bit of discovery, a little bit of harvesting, a little bit of combat.
Are you guys going to be utilizing the classic colored key mechanic?
Yeah, we are. That is in the DNA of this genre. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't. But yeah, red, blue, yellow keys, kind of dictating unlocks and locks. What I like that we did is we took some of the bigger missions. I mean, there are times in, I think, like Descent or some of these other Overload and some of the other games where you feel lost. The missions take 2 hours to get through, and they're just big sprawling things. What we did is we used the classic key mechanic, but we broke them up, and so you can do kind of mini versions where you pick up where you're left off, and you're continuing to explore the same asteroid mission, but maybe from a different vantage point, maybe going through a different section that you saw but you couldn't access because you didn't have the right key at the time. So it's a little bit more about going out and coming back in ours, but we use the same mechanic.
So in the old school days, obviously we could save and load games with an F function button press. Is S.T.F.U going to feature a save state system, or is the online?
Yeah, no.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's all saved for you. So all of your state, whether you are even the single player experience, is played within the context of an online connection. So it's not a completely disconnected, hey, I'm going to save as I go kind of thing, where you can also shut the computer off to avoid saving there. So even the solo play is still played within because we have to monitor what you're doing. Those are resources you can still spend in our economy.
Okay. That's starting to lead me into my harder ball questions.
I hope I can answer these.
Yeah, in the sense of the game having an online service function, it is openly and dramatically increases the likelihood down the road that a central server shutdown or reset could make the game and subsequently the NFTs useless and unusable, regardless of how much money someone did or didn't spend on them. I guess what I'm wondering is, in the event that the game doesn't succeed but still has a player base, what exists to ensure that, say, I can still play the game years from now like I can Descent today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, by the way. There's a couple projects I got involved with a while back, and admittedly I've lost track of them, but there was some really fantastic tech for blockchain hosted servers and making your project, sort of giving it to the community, not necessarily open sourcing it, but giving it to the community in a way where it could be decentralized hosted. And I think that's something that we're looking at heavily because in the true spirit of blockchain, we want this thing to have life even beyond ourselves, right? If that's the case. I will say, with the caveat is, I think unlike most blockchain projects, we're not betting the farm entirely on Web3 because we have the free to play revenue as well. And so having both of those is kind of a nice hedge, because one can take off and be very successful and still support the other. And which just means a better, healthier game with a better, healthier company behind it. I will also say that this is not our only game in the space, and I alluded to kind of one of the big places we're focusing on is user-generated content. Everything. We're going to be putting out more games in the blockchain space, one at a time, obviously, but all of them leaning into user-generated content and sharing rewards with the community. Good question, by the way.
Thank you, boss. And with that, it is time for me to kick it into the community question portion of our segment with a question that was submitted to me in advance anonymously. This user writes, I have a concern with the tokenomics that relates to how this seems to require 3 different tokens for different and seemingly convoluted on-chain transactions. Why are you guys using 3 tokens instead of 1 for everything? Generally, when a blockchain development is involved, it's a good idea to process everything that isn't absolutely required to be on-chain on primary servers due to the perception of increased gas costs that would then be offloaded to the end user.
Great question. I think there's a difference. So I would agree with them for the most part. I think there's a difference between having an on-chain token and having a publicly sellable token, right? Like your primary, our primary token is S.T.F.U. That's the token that will be available on public exchanges and that sort of thing. Having the other on-chain resources is just a transparency mechanism for us. And so as you're accumulating Nano and Thorite, those are game-based tokens. We're just putting them on chain. I would say that gas fees are always a concern. We are on Polygon, and we've already started discussions as a company to run a supernet for our projects because of the UGC component and the desire to want to manage. Obviously, we host for a living. That's what we do. All of our games have private hosting, private servers that we host. So being able to leverage that network as a supernode, supernet, sorry, would is a way that we can use our own token for gas, keep that cheap for the players, but also maintain our own ecosystem. So hopefully that answers the question. I think we're always looking at this. We're always looking for ways to kind of make sure we're not doing things for the sake of doing them. Just throwing things in, as it were. We want to be absolutely thoughtful about the design of the game and about the tokenomics. Sometimes less is more. So we take that comment to heart. I think the whole purpose of publishing the white paper in as much detail as we have is to get the community feedback, have more eyeballs going through it and pointing out places where they feel like, hey, maybe you could streamline it like this, XYZ. We're open to that feedback.
That does beg the question, because I just noticed, apologies. I will now allow Alchemist up here. For those not aware, the Alchemist is here. The Alchemist is the lead blockchain designer for this project, so any comments that the Alchemist has, I'm sure we'd love to hear.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for letting me jump in. I just wanted to kind of come in and touch on that last question. This was kind of my initial design. And the main reason we have 3 tokens on chain is for sustainability. If you look at any other GameFi project, any of them that are currently in the state, currently in a functional state, a lot of them are just in a never-ending sell pressure mode. And especially any game that uses their core governance DAO token as the reward, you just have constant sell pressure. And it's not functionally sustainable. And with our design of bringing in free to play revenue into our treasury, we don't want to burn through that extremely quick and just run out of a long-term runway. The goal is that using these extra tokens allows us to make changes to the economy and crafting over time, and offset sell pressure into different areas so that people can take profit when they want to take profit without really damaging the main DAO ecosystem token, S.T.F.U. It seems a little convoluted just because of how it's just written out as an initial explanation in the white paper, but once we're on chain and crafting is live, it will not be nearly as complicated. It'll be pretty easy, and you'll see where those tokens go and where they lie and how they work with each other. There's not going to be a lot of liquidity on them. It just gives us the ability to kind of spread out the economy and make it more sustainable over time.
That does beg the question. In case it wasn't accurately stated, the white paper doesn't articulate exactly which blockchain or token you guys are building on as a framework. Is S.T.F.U and the ecosystem a separate blockchain?
No, we'll be on.
Yeah, we're on Polygon.
Polygon. Okay, that's
so
what
I know that
we
there
wanted
was
to
some
know.
I'm glad you asked, because I know there was some confusion. 100 Days launched on Avalanche, so I think that many people just assumed we would be on Avalanche, but no, we're building off Polygon.
In particular, it was revealed to me that Avalanche has a subnet function that essentially allows for game-related projects to operate tokenomically with a minimum of gas fees. Now, I don't know much about the technicals of that, but that was made. I was made aware of that recently.
we did a big deep dive on subnets, and so it's functionally identical to supernets from Poly. So they have the same general concept, where which I'm a big fan of. Right, again, because we host our own servers and we have all the infrastructure there, why not use that for our own transactions to reduce gas fees and make the game less expensive for players?
Awesome. Thank you to the anonymous user who sent that in to me. You know who you are. Our first non-anonymous question comes from Master Halo 40. How and in which game modes can you earn rewards within S.T.F.U?
I'll let Alchemist take that one.
Ooh.
Awesome. Yes. So, to clarify, would those be blockchain-based resources?
I'm assuming
yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming the user's wondering what realizable in any form rewards they can get from playing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a few different kind of sub-economies within our blockchain-based economy. And primarily, users will be able to, earn revenue or get rewards through our UGC focus. And this will work kind of around and through the asteroid run designs that Matt was talking about a little bit earlier. You create a product, people go out and play it, and there's going to be kind of a win-loss ratio of players with NFT chain ships trying to attack and win against an asteroid, and the asteroid owner who's trying to set it up so that it's defensible. And our goal is that the best rewards will come from asteroids who strive for like a 50% win-loss ratio, which is going to honestly be the hardest way to do it. It's easy to make a easy level. It's easy to make a hard level. It's hard to make a fair level. So the rewards primarily distribute through there. We have also multiplayer, really nice multiplayer kind of functionality where free-to-play players and blockchain players play together, but blockchain players will have access to those crafting resources, those 3 tokens. Those could simply be sold for profit, or they can be used for specific blockchain-based crafting that then goes back into the asteroid run design. So the goal is to keep the economy kind of tight so that everything is very, very circulatory. One token flows into another system mechanic that flows into another token that flows into another mechanic, and keeps people engaged and having fun, and hopefully not really worrying about taking profit, but obviously the option will always be there at any of those steps.
Okay. Is there a limit to what you can generate and withdraw on any time basis, hourly, daily, etc.?
There will be limits in that. So for an NFT ship to take part in certain blockchain mechanics, they will require the use of thorite, which in essence represents a fuel source on blockchain. So the NFTs will kind of be written out as contracts where they can stake their own thorite into the ship and then take it out on multiplayer runs, asteroid runs. And as you continue playing, you will be burning through this resource. When you run out of it, you can do free missions, blockchain missions, or some multiplayer missions to slowly start reaccruing that thorite token. But you need that to take part in the other mechanics, specifically attacking an asteroid run. So you're only limited in how much of that token you have purchased or accrued through the missions in multiplayer.
Right. So said slightly different. I think the limits are on the faucets, not on the sinks. So gaining those. We want to be most protective about how fast and how much we emit out of the treasury, and that's why we have some of those mechanics, the fuel resources there to try to gate people from just going in and just completely having too much get admitted out of the treasury. But in terms of exiting or selling, I don't think we have any limits set up.
Okay. Master Halo's second question. I was seeing that you guys have a second section called S.T.F.U NFT Pilot License Tiers. I want to know a little more about those. How can they be acquired, and what benefits or rewards would I get for playing?
Oh, that's a softball. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So there's 3 tiers. That the pilot's license is what is going on sale on Friday, and so we're talking to the community. This is the first chance for people to jump on board. We have a limited quantity, so it's we want to be upfront. This is not the entire quantity of pilot's licenses. We're just taking a smaller subset of quantities. They are discounted, which drives up the value quite a bit. And we have 3 different tiers. We have the Iron tier, which is our basic category. It's a chain NFT. So you've got the pilot's license itself. The Iron tier is an NFT that will emit airdropped rewards for the next 6 months. So it's 5 legendary ships, 5 preset ships. There'll be some cosmetic mods and some performance mods. And then I think for Alchemist, I think we have a smallish S.T.F.U token airdrop as well, included in the Iron tier. Is that right?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then I think the value goes beyond that. We're doing dev diaries every week, so we've got a pretty rigorous milestone schedule that we're sharing with the community. So if you want to see how the sausage gets made, then all of the pilot's license, regardless of tier, will have access to insider videos and just seeing us track towards the end of year release, which will include the initial beta of our level design toolkit for the asteroid runs. And then the second tier is Thorite. So that's kind of our middle tier. Thorite is it's got about a year's worth of rewards in it. I think it's 10 legendaries, which is, we only have 20 ship types. So we're making a pass through every ship type to do 1 legendary, which I referred to earlier, which is just us with a kind of a fun, cool cosmetic thematic for it, plus a unique mod. And so there's 10 legendaries in there. There's 10 presets, and then a small asteroid run that they get to develop day 1. So having that is super cool. And then the biggest one is the Nano tier, which is our how many of those do we have for Friday? I don't think we have very many of them.
5.
5 of them. So
25.
25. Oh, sorry, 25. Okay, that's not so bad. 25. Just super limited. Not a lot of those. There'll be more once we release the rest of the quantity. But this is just for early folks who want to get involved, kind of creating our community. But that one has a large piece of land in it, plus a fairly significant S.T.F.U airdrop once the token goes live.
All right, so to put a cap on it, you're going to get NFT ships, which have individual NFTs and can be sold. You're going to get a set of resources that can be used in-game, and the legendary ships as well, which will be unique in some fashion. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I
so
was just going to say, I posted a picture of what the kind of a little overview snapshot of what a legendary ship looks like in the chat, if anybody wants to glance at it.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, that's a perfect. I don't know if you have anybody has time. There's a great article that goes way more into detail. I think it's the what's a pilot without a ship. It's on our Medium, and that actually breaks down corp ships, chain ships, tech tree upgrades, mods, how they slot in. Give some examples there. But yeah, this is our Gladius. So it'll be one of our first legendary ships. It's based off the Saber, and we're showing you a little bit of what that unique performance mod is. It's called Siege Rounds, and so Siege Rounds gives you a 15% of your damage done. It pierces through shields. So it's an additional mod. It's locked on there. So not all mods are locked. Some of them can be open, and then you can craft new mods to stick in there. Some of them can be locked without a mod in there when we sell a ship, and some of them are like this one, are unique and locked in.
Okay. Next question comes from Sahal. If you're looking at something like Axie, which is a $1 billion project now struggling with no players there to play it, my question would be how you guys would ensure that the same thing doesn't happen to S.T.F.U. And for anyone, just for edification, I'd remind everyone, Axie got hit by an international crime ring and their bridge was robbed. So, worth noting.
Right. I think, I mean, obviously Axie has, they were a first mover. I give them full marks for designing and advancing GameFi in ways that just hadn't been done. So there's a little bit of just they were in unexplored territory there. So, even outside of the unfortunate scenario there that happened with them, I think that some of their treasury design or some of their tokenomics weren't, just in hindsight, probably weren't sustainable. We talk about that in the first article, that Web 2.5 article, where some of these early games they didn't really insulate against sell pressure. It was like the first wave of people that got into Axie were immediately trying to sell off their stuff to the next wave of people, and it kind of turned into, again, no disrespect to them, but it kind of turned into a Ponzi scheme. And so I think we're comparing apples to oranges, whereas S.T.F.U was always designed from the ground up as a traditional game with traditional mechanics. Where we lean into tokenomics is really in the UGC part of things, where we have users creating content, and it's our way of rewarding them. So play to earn or create to earn rewards with a full-blown DAO design with the token and governance.
Okay.
Kind of different.
Yeah. Sahal's second question is kind of along that same vibe. This question comes from an investor's perspective. How do you plan to create enough buying pressure? Will the S.T.F.U coin be inflationary or in limited supply? As with the play to earn background, you will need enough coin for gamers to earn in the long term.
Yeah, so again, that's a great question. It's something that we spent a lot of time looking at, and they correctly point out that in the past, a lot of these GameFi projects that have play-to-earn tokens, they do become inflationary. And one day you're playing for dollars, and the next day you're playing for pennies. And so with our system, we designed around that. There's limited quantity, and the way we replenish the treasury is through using our free-to-play revenue, which converts to USDC, goes into the treasury, and then we buy back our own token. So it has that sort of double-sided effect, which is really cool in that, one, it gives us a way to replenish the play-to-earn tokens while still having a limited quantity, but two, it also drives up the value.
Okay. Our next question comes from Lucifer X. I believe it was already answered earlier. They are asking, if we're talking about gas fees, then why not operate on Matic Polygon? It has a big community and more tools and support. I believe that's exactly where they're operating. So that answers that.
Exactly correct. And exactly why we're doing it.
The Dave is our next questioner. They ask, due to the conditions of the market, we're not seeing that many players these days. By players, I think they mean users in play-to-earn video games in general. How does S.T.F.U plan to convince and capture potentially big markets like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh?
Yeah, so Little Orbit is already a worldwide publisher for APB and some of our other titles. We have huge markets in Turkey or Eastern Europe or other territories. I think this game, like any of our other games, is just one of those things where we'll have our servers that we host and the providers we use tend to be local. So we actually put up local multiplayer servers in those regions. So supporting them becomes a lot easier when they have high low ping times and good playthrough rates there. I think it's an interesting time with crypto, right? One thing I've learned over the last year and a half is that trying to predict crypto is a waste of time.
Yes.
I think what we can do is just provide value, make sure that we're coming in at an appropriate price. And I think right now, if I'm being honest, I think the market is low, and so getting in on something that has long-term sustainability, maybe with a thoughtful tokenomics design and elements that, like I said, will replenish the treasury. I think I don't want to oversell it. In fact, I'm kind of anti-hype, but I feel like there's a lot of room to grow up or go upward from here.
All right, continuing along the sort of similar vein of funding and tokenomics, Least Comic Standing asks, it seems like the current model is similar to a dewdrops and sales to finance the rest of the game development. Kickstarter-like kind of bootstrap. Is this the case, or is there another quote-unquote behind-the-scenes funding model? If there is a funding model behind the scenes, or rather if there isn't, what happens if sales don't do as well as we hope?
Yeah, it's a great question, by the way. I'm glad they asked. No, it's not the case. This game's been in development since 2015. We've spent millions of dollars already on the game, and like I said, last year we had a finished game in free to play sitting there waiting to launch that I put the brakes on. And so we're not using the NFT money. And in fact, I think if you look at the quantities and the dollar amounts and the discounts, this is not a substantial raise for us. I think what we're doing is marketing. This is our chance to grow the community and start the process of building out a blockchain group of players and investors around our title, which is necessary, right? And the way to do that is to offer them something of value. And so I think, like I said, I think if you look at the total size of the raise, it's not something I would ever want to try to make the game, make a game on the back of. And anybody who goes out and is going to do, $300,000-$400,000 worth of NFT sales and says they can make a game off that is fooling you. Games take iteration, they take time to make, and I think that's why we've seen a lot of crypto projects struggle in that I think you had crypto people making games and not game developers making games. And so, this has had a ton of iteration on it. It's had tons of years worth of gestation and features being looked at and refined. And that's just what games take.
That answer is music to my ears, mostly because that exact conversation has happened in this Discord more than once when an NFT game project has come up. Is the community and I will say in unison, this feels like it was designed by engineers and not game devs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an engineer by trade. I came out of public consulting before I got into video games, and I've been doing video games for nearly 20 years. And I think, unlike strictly speaking engineering, engineering, if I'm building a system, say a banking system, there'll be a spec. We meet that spec, we program, we divide the thing into milestones, we hit the spec, and it works, right? Functionally, the definition of success is it works. Games don't have that luxury. We have this intangible quality called fun. And so you can hit the mark, you can implement your design, you can reach the finish line even. And if it's not fun, then it's not deemed a success. And that's where the iteration is really key.
And I have to really beat this home to people. This especially applies to game development, but for crypto projects too. Just because someone's struggling to get their thing to work right doesn't necessarily make it an immediate failure. If it was virally successful in marketing, but isn't fun or isn't implemented quite the way that the team intended, they're going to try to fix it if they're good faith actors. And I have to criticize a lot of people who are constantly saying, oh, that's a scam, that's a fraud, this is a scam. But they're not using the word scam or fraud properly. People are still building things. And it's so important that I emphasize that point, that when someone is still building something, that it doesn't necessarily make it a scam. Which actually brings me to Comic's second question. Were all of the original Kickstarter participants from the older iteration of the game compensated in some way to the extent of what's been promised? That is to say, have any previous backers been left empty-handed?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really great question, and one that I'm happy to answer, frankly. So there's two answers to the question. The first is that the Kickstarter folks, and I'm definitely focused on the Kickstarter folks because they have been invested a long time. That yes. Kickstarter ran in 2015, and the project has had its challenges, but they're going to get the game they were promised. That is first and foremost, with the exception of the name, which I feel bad about, right? There's nothing I can do about that. That's understandable. Right. So with the exception of the name, but the game that was promised, the mechanisms and the scope there, that's all going to be delivered. And in fact, one of the big key selling features was this PVE co-op. And it was a feature that through the course of development never got worked on. And so part of bringing this to blockchain and adding that UGC element is just really exciting for me because it's an iteration on the idea that was first really sold to Kickstarters by the previous developer, that where I think we're delivering above and beyond, frankly, what was in the original design. So there's that first piece. And secondarily, on top of that, I mean, they're getting the game that they paid for, but on top of that, we're actually holding in reserve tiers from the pilot's license to also give to almost every backer. So you have to be above a certain level. Obviously, we're not going to give a $300 pilot's license to the guy that backed for $20, but for most of the backers, I would say 80% or higher, we're going to be giving them a free pilot's license to enjoy, just for being patient and working with us. And the game has taken a little bit to get out. So we hope that our Kickstarter backers, the early access backers, obviously the new community that we're building, they're all going to be really excited about this.
Sounds like a union of a bunch of excited people to me. All right, at this exact moment, we are 5 minutes over the hour mark, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for all of the questions and the clarity that with which you answered them. We still have about 7 or 8 more users to get through. Is it okay if we keep going?
Sure, of course.
Awesome.
Yep.
Really appreciate it, you guys. Our next question comes from Mewtwo. Is S.T.F.U using anything that is related to NFTs, or is it free from NFTs? And how are the in-game resources getting their value?
Right. So I think we've covered some of this.
Yes.
It's a split hybrid model. Sort of our Web 2.5 model. You can engage the game, to answer their question more directly. You can engage the game purely as a free-to-play game and never interact with any blockchain elements if you don't want to. And our hope there is, again, to rewrite the narrative for gamers, that they'll get in, they'll be having fun. It's a traditional game. There's lots of mechanics to engage in. And at some point, they're going to peek across the fence and say, oh, there's a lot going on over here that I wish I could participate in. And maybe instead of buying the corporate ship on this next sale, I'm going to buy a chain ship, or I'm going to buy a chain mod, or I'm going to participate on that side. And I think that is honestly great for everybody. That's great for investors. That's great for the chain players. They grow the audience, right? And destigmatize NFTs with gamers. And so how do we derive value? I mean, I think it's the same way that if you're going to play a Fortnite and you're going to buy a battle pass and you're going to have fun playing that on the free-to-play side, that value is intrinsic to the game, but it's unique to you. None of that leaves your account. So the free-to-play players, in a way, are not competing with the inventory of chain items that the investors are buying or that other chain buyers are buying. And then on the flip side, right, all the blockchain stuff has its own value, limited quantity, so there'll be limited supply on everything. We're not doing any sort of unlimited minting. Things will inevitably have scarcity to drive the value there.
Okay. Mewtwo's second question is a bit more nuanced. It involves how the resources in-game are distributed to players in combination with the S.T.F.U token and the blockchain. And they're asking about this in reference to the ability of players to customize their ship in a cosmetic fashion. So they're wondering how it's possible to change essentially how it's possible to change a non-fungible token. And they're wondering about the technology you guys are utilizing to allow players to customize their blockchain ship.
Right. So and we've seen this in a couple other games. The core NFT is the piece that's on chain, and that's the piece that would be sold. So our private servers store the information of any customizations that's you've added, you've crafted or modified. If you go to sell the ship, our private server will move the information over, and then the public NFT and all that metadata stays intact. We're not yet going after any sort of DNFTs or dynamic NFTs. It's something we've looked at, possibly exploring the ability to modify some of the metadata after minting. But for now, we're taking kind of an old school approach where the mods and customizations are on the private servers, and the public NFT, the basics of the NFT, are stored on chain.
Okay. Our next question comes from Davey BG. What was the name S.T.F.U intentional? I mean, having a similarity with the offensive or pejorative meaning of it. Was that intentional? And if so, were you guys not afraid that the game wouldn't be taken seriously with a name like that?
Hold on. Does that mean something else?
I hate to break it to you. Yeah. Look, I think that it's interesting. This is, again, a multi-sided answer. One, that was the original code name for the game when it was in development prior to getting involved with Interplay and the Descent license. So there's a little bit of us honoring the original name and the code name, right? It's sort of a funny name too, if you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very descriptive. It's exactly what the game is: ships that fight underground. There's no getting away with that. At a high concept level, that's what Descent was and what Overload was and that sort of thing. It is 100% intentional and sort of tongue in cheek, right? Knowing the backstory about this and a little bit of a, hey, let's get this game out, right? We've had a lot of roadblocks and possible adversity, and in some cases, I think we took lemons and made lemonade out of them, and we iterated with the design to create even better and bigger features that I'm personally very, very proud of. I think it's interesting to have watched and been so deeply involved in this game and seen the level of iteration that's occurred, in some cases derived off adversity, because we had to, right? We had to change the name and we had to step away from some of the mechanics from our predecessors like Descent and Overload and other games. So I don't worry at all, and potentially maybe I don't care if we're taken seriously. I think the game is good enough to speak for itself.
Okay. Our next question comes from Como Se Como Sa, who asks, what types of roles will the ships have? I've seen in the white paper there will be 20 ships with different roles, but I'm not sure what that exactly means. Also, will ships and lands be tradable right away, or will there be some time period I must hold them?
That's a good question. I'll let Alchemist take that one.
Yeah. So on the first part, our ships are broken up into 5 different kind of overall classifications, and they relate back into just kind of the functional way that the ships are used in the game. As we progress into our early access and we start adding on more and more features, these roles will demonstrate themselves more earnestly in game. But it's broken apart into assault ships, defensive ships, miners, as in mining asteroids, haulers, which will then carry resources around, and then engineer ships. Engineers are kind of the high-tech support ships, or anti-tracking ships. They kind of all have different roles that they fit into.
Okay.
And this is really how those 20 ships, 4 of each will fall into one of the roles. And as we progress through the game, they will kind of be added on, constantly adjusting and changing the metagame and how the multiplayer works, how the asteroid runs work. If we introduce an engineer ship that has some stealthing mechanics that allows it to get through certain parts of an asteroid run, then the asteroid run owners are going to have to make adjustments for that type of technology. So it allows us to really, create a nice in-depth meta as we move through the game.
You could think of it as kind of an analogy would be like the champions in League of Legends. Mm-hmm. So they release new champions all the time, and those the champions all fall into a couple basic roles, right? They're not reinventing the gameplay roles. They're just kind of getting into that design space and coming up with unique variations on how they fit that role.
Okay, that causes. Go for it, Tyler. No, you're good.
I was going to answer the second part of the question, so
yes, please
go ahead with your part. Okay.
Please, no, I can wait.
In regards to tradability, all NFT ships and asteroid run, the tokenized metaverse lands, those will all be tradable. As it relates to the airdrops for the pilot license, we will do some unique designs, because as we introduce ships, there will be a limited sale of a said ship that happens prior to a pilot license holder receiving the airdrop. It would cause a lot of confusion for the supply and remaining supply for sale if we're airdropping those to people as the sale is happening. So we found that the best way to fix that was that when each cell finishes for a specific ship, then any pilotless license holders will be given the free airdrop of whatever was just previous for sale if it's allocated to the said license. Same for the asteroid run lands. When we start airdropping that, we'll probably end up doing something more of a Dutch auction style for those lands, because they're going to come out in small portions as we expand out our early access and our level design kit. But once you receive them, they're fully tradable on any marketplace on Polygon.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of raises a gaming-based follow-up from me. Is this game gonna have a hub world, like a game like Deep Rock Galactic, where you're with your buddies, you go out in your procedurally generated, completely interior asteroid, you'll collect some resources, and when you get back to your hub world, everyone shares the pot and celebrates with a beer?
Fun game reference. I might let Matt go with that one, because he has some ideas for what we want to do with a hub design in the asteroid belt in the long run.
Yeah, obviously, if this is still in design, there's only going to be so much they can tell us, but I have to ask.
No. It's a great question. I think this is one area of the game that we're still kind of polishing up. You mentioned earlier about games that release that constantly or continue to iterate, and I think that's true. I think sometimes you have to get user feedback and you have to get testing at a large scale to see how a system's going to work. And so, but one of the design goals is to have hubs where you jump in that are tied to various corporations. So various parts of the asteroid belt will have kind of a hub. You jump in, and that's where you're going to be picking up various asteroid runs. And then I think there's a mechanic where you can pledge or stake an asteroid run to a specific corporation to generate those. That dictates what the crystals or the resources are that are going to be in there. So there's a little bit of what we're trying to do is give players a flow where they know, oh, these are the resources I need to complete the crafting of a specific mod. Where do I go get those, right? And it also creates kind of a fun meta game where if I'm a landholder, it's best for me to kind of check in periodically and see, oh wow, these are the resources everybody wants, and you're locked in for a certain number of days. So you can't constantly move. But if you have an opportunity to move and you can time it right, then your asteroid can be producing the high value resources that everybody seems to be wanting at the time. So there's some design right there that we're working on to dictate how our hub's going to work.
Okay. Our next question comes from Arthax, who asks, "What made you guys decide to set the prices for I'm assuming the NFT packages for the game in the way that you did? And do you think that the cost to enter is fairly priced to let every willing player play?"
So I'll take this one. Yeah, I think that one thing we did was, first and foremost, we just did an audit of what's out there and took a look at where their pricing was, and then we did a gut check on like personally, I played Axie as part of my research, and kind of, again, I don't want to take too many shots at them, but I felt like the bar to even get into Axie was incredibly high. When I jumped in, it was like $200 to $300 per NFT. You needed 3 of them to even start, and typically at that point you were just getting going because the 3 you got weren't going to be matched up very well to make an effective team. And so that kind of barrier to entry, $1,000 or higher, just seemed crazy to me. What we did, we operate games in the free-to-play space. So we started from the free-to-play side. We said, okay, what would we normally charge on the free-to-play side for this? There are a lot of direct analogies between S.T.F.U and APB and some of the other stuff where we price 1-to-1. If we sell a gun or a legendary or a car, if we sell something over there at a certain price, then we pretty much targeted the same free-to-play price with S.T.F.U. And then from there, we took kind of a straight multiplier, not a big number, but just we kind of priced it accordingly. We kind of said, okay, what feels comfortable to get into? We have some chain assets being sold for $50, and others that are sold for 200 or 100, and we wanted to keep them lower on the low end of the spectrum, and then that all then, that entire economic design factored its way into the pilot's license. Because, what we really tried to do with the pilot's license was to come out at like an 80 or 90% discount. So if you're getting in now, the eventual value of the items that are emitted by the pilot's license, it's before the 50% discount. I'd have to ask Alchemist where we netted out here, but I want to say at least on the high end one on Nano, I think we were like an 83% discount, and that was before we put the 50% discount on top of it.
4%, and then so cut that in half.
It's better now. Yeah,
it's like 96% or something now
for that early adopter bonus.
There's a massive early adopter bonus. Yeah, so I feel really, we want everybody to play. We don't want to price this thing out. This is not some high-end, crazy exclusive, country club where we're going to get 20 people playing. We wanted to price it for mass market. Obviously, on the free-to-play side, we want it to be as broad as possible, and we want it to be pretty approachable for the blockchain investors.
I have to add that the Iron license is the most approachable one. It's $150, and that's the one that gives you a nice set. Every one of those, those ship styles, an assault ship, a defense ship, etc. The price goes up from there because we start adding in the asteroid run land, and that is where the primary create to earn cycle happens. So there's a price point jump there because that's where the biggest earning potential is.
Okay. A second follow-up from Arthix. Will there be any option for players to test out the game before buying something? I believe the answer to that is yes, if it's free to play in general.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There'll be we have 5 basic ships that will be accessible for free to play. So you can jump on there, you can get one of those ships, try the game out, see how you like it, and then you can make your decisions.
Awesome. All right, our next question comes from Secrets, who asks, I'm theoretically a paper-handed individual who wants to test the waters of the model financially. Would there be any options for me to test those waters?
That's a great question. I'm not sure how to answer
has the rental mechanic, right? Where you can rent someone else's NFTs and play with them in the game with some distribution of the blockchain tokens going to you, but most being retained by the owner.
This is something that we've looked at. We've looked at one of the most recent ERC standards that came out that has built-in rentable technology. It's something that our devs would be pretty mad at if we added on right now, though. So
understandable.
It's something we're going to have to explore. Yeah, and we oddly enough on the free-to-play side, rather than doing loot crates, which we feel is kind of an abusive mechanic on the free-to-play side, we actually do renting.
With that.
Where we take legendaries, the equivalent of legendaries on the free-to-play side, and you can rent them. And every time you rent them, you get a higher and higher chance of getting it permanently. So one, you're getting the item, you get to trial it, you get to have fun with it. There's no loot crate mechanic where you get something and only have a 1% chance of getting the item you wanted. But it definitely, there's design space there already, which we would just need to attach to, like Alchemist mentioned, to the correct ERC standard and let people participate in scholarship or renting and that sort of thing. But it is, I would say it's something we're definitely interested in and looking at, but it's not in our MVP coming out at the end of this year.
Okay,
the thing, as you're playing with a free-to-play ship, you will, you do have the ability to see the blockchain mechanics if you want. You can see what's going on. You can see what other ships are earning. So you would have an idea of, wow, if I switch to an NFT ship, these are the things that I would have access to.
That's a good point. That's definitely true. So auditing is there, right? There's no barrier to entry here, right? You can get in, you can get a basic ship. That's all free to play, right? You can level up and grind and add mods, that sort of thing. And you can see exactly what you would have gotten if you were holding an NFT ship.
Okay. Secrets' second question, are there plans to offer other content through the NFTs beyond the pilot's license on a regular basis?
That's a good question. I think we have so much stuff loaded up in there. I don't want to, one thing we're very mindful of is sort of overloading these pilot licenses, right? Like obviously we've got a lot more content planned and these are so steeply discounted, right? We don't want to just basically satisfy all the demand up front. But I mean, having said that, there's just a ton of stuff in there. There's the S.T.F.U airdrop. There's two out of the three have land components. There's all the mods and all the ships. So I don't think we're gonna add anything else to the pilot. So we might throw an occasional surprise in there or something that we didn't socialize. But I think primarily what we want to do is get on with getting the game out. I do love that the pilot's license have dev diary access and they can get in and check in on their investment. They can see what's happening with the game and how what the track is there, and that's not unique. But I think maybe what is unique is that as a real game development company, the guys are running sprints, and we can publish literally on a week by week basis what the team's working on and what that roadmap looks like to the MVP.
Very cool. Our next question from SSJ Chan. In the event of a hack or server overload, how prepared are you?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is something we deal with on a daily basis. So frankly, if you are in the space now, as a free-to-play provider on a PvP game or on any sort of online game, you deal with this. This is all of our hosting is hardened. We host out of tier 1, tier 2 providers all over the world. You have to have load balancing. You have to have DDoS scrubbing. You have to have that's just the cost of entry. So we have all that up and running on our current games, and this will be no exception. I think that's not a blockchain problem. That's a free-to-play publisher problem.
Yes, and in general, my game just came out and everyone wants to play it problem too.
Right. But scalability, I mean, the good news there is, that problem has also, there's a lot of solutions to that problem. So scalability, the way we've developed the backend on this, our CI, our continuous integration environment, means that as developers continue to work on the game, when they check in fixes, there's automatically a build kicked off. That build gets uploaded to our multiplayer servers in a test environment. QA can immediately jump on, and when it's ready, they can promote that, and it gets distributed out to all of our hosting sites. So there's a pretty short track there for being able to patch and fix things.
Okay. And the direct follow-up, of course, to that would be, in the event of some kind of downtime or server outage, where would the users go to find their anxiety relieved by comfortable words from the development staff?
Sure. So, I mean, that also a great question. So we maintain forums on our gamersfirst.com website. Gamersfirst.com, by the way, is our free-to-play portal. Little Orbit owns that. Has about 20 million registered players over the years. They're not all active by any stretch of the imagination, but that site's been up for more than 10 years. And we run our own Discord. So for S.T.F.U, we have a dedicated Discord channel for players and folks who own content to be able to jump on and ask mods and talk to folks. So both of those are fairly interactive, right? Being able to post and get a response. We also have full customer support. When you manage free-to-play games like we do, we have a trouble ticketing solution at support.littleorbit.com that players can go open trouble tickets and they'll get a response typically same day from our support. So it's a full-fledged company, not a sort of fly-by-night organization, throwing things together. There's along with all of these bits and pieces with online multiplayer, you have to have good support. There's also Twitter and other social media to be able to get us.
Oh, yeah. All right, our next question comes from 10th Hokage, who asks, what portion of the S.T.F.U token supply will be allocated to on-chain pilots license holders?
So we have a theoretical breakdown of how that pricing will work out. We're estimating about $25 in S.T.F.U rewards for iron, $75 for thorite, and $500 for nano. If you look at our white paper, there's a breakdown for early community airdrops. I believe it's calculated at 1%, which is a pretty large amount of a total token supply. our plan is that those rewards will come from that allocation. If we have to, we can pull from the treasury. We will likely, and obviously we're going to put a lot more information up when we get closer to the release of the S.T.F.U token, but we're probably going to have a little bit of a gamification for those tokens, just to make sure that that you're playing the game, that you're supporting the community, and that just through playing the game and staying active, you'll get your rewards.
Okay. Tentokage's second question is, can you guys please elaborate just a little more about why you would have decided to skip using a launch pad, considering that launch pads these days are an amazing way to market blockchain games?
Yeah, I don't think, to be fair, I don't think we've skipped the launch pad. That's still coming.
Okay.
It's just a little later this year. I think what we're doing is really focusing on utility. And this goes back to my point. Like, none of this is an investment. None of this is raising money to fund development, right? We're really just community building. And I think just it was an internal decision for me to say, hey, we're not going to lead with the token. We're going to lead with the game. We're going to lead with the ships and talk about our unique mechanics and how things work and let people get comfortable with that. And then we definitely do plan on taking the token to a launch pad later this year when that comes out.
I think that was the right thing to do if you asked me. Just saying.
Yeah, I feel like it's too speculative. I don't, as an investor, I invest in crypto projects all the time, do a lot of game-based stuff, and I know what I would want to see, and I'm largely trying to follow that. Is like, if I were on the other side of this, I would want to see an extensive white paper with extensive tokenomics that are transparent. I'd want to understand the game mechanics. I'd want to understand the meta game, how the resources are used, how this is all going to build value. And I'd want, and I'd want to be able to kind of test the waters before they start shoving a token at me, which I don't know. I'd want to know what that token does and how it's going to work before I start, before I invest.
Absolutely. All right, our next user is M. Mahar, who asks, why did you come up with the hybrid gaming model with two economies? Will it be possible for a corporate ship to earn chain resources in any possible way? And what would a pilot need to access a chain ship?
Yeah, so great. That's a fantastic question. We've talked a little bit about why we came up with the hybrid model. It's a combination of things, frankly. I think that having a game out there that has, I'm going to call them real traditional game mechanics, shooter mechanics with the meta game and harvesting and crafting. Having that game as an on-ramp where you can start for free, you can get basic ships, it's a total free-to-play game, and then you get the opportunity to peek over the fence and see what's happening with the sort of chain counterparts, right? If I had a chain ship, what would it be earning me? If I had these things, I think that's really powerful. And we spend months designing this. There isn't really a roadmap for this kind of game out there yet that I know of. Everything we put together has all been developed in-house. And so sort of leading the way with the sort of transparent model where we're going to be publishing what our free-to-play revenue actually is. You can see it because it'll be converted to USDC and added to the treasury. So as a publisher for this game, all of the information about the health and financial success of the game is all public. It'll all be there in the ledgers there. And so I feel like it's the next evolution of publishing. I feel like having the hybrid allows for more exposure. It rewrites that sort of ugly narrative with gamers, traditional gamers, around what an NFT is and why you have them. And so I think that was just super critical for us. I don't think there's going to be a way to take a corporate ship and earn rewards. We are looking at a couple scenarios where potentially we can create a placeholder wallet for you. The idea here is our gamersfirst.com backend is what we use for all of our free-to-play purchases and all of our free-to-play economy, all of our storefront stuff. And so we're building out blockchain capabilities on gamersfirst.com so your account can literally just register a wallet, and then you'll have, once you've registered a wallet, then the NFTs in your wallet can be playable in game directly on your Gamers First account. And so certainly, if I start with a free-to-play account, I can at any point add a wallet and I can matriculate over to being a blockchain player. But taking a corporate ship, I mean, the idea is it's not tied to a wallet, right? So it doesn't get to participate in a lot of things because we can't really authenticate it.
Yeah.
We do have, and to add on that, we are looking at one mechanic, whereas the corporate ships will accrue something called unstable thorite. Given that thorite is the blockchain token that NFT ships need to take part in a lot of the advanced missions and asteroid runs, a corp ship will accrue basically a centralized version called unstable thorite. And if at any time they were to switch to an NFT ship or pick one up, or if we have renting or borrowing in the future, we're looking at ways that they can then unlock what they have already accrued. So, kind of.
Okay.
But again, it requires an NFT ship because that's just how all the chain interactions work, like Matt said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey guys, I apologize. Oh. I need to run to another meeting.
Awesome.
The questions have been amazing. I'm 5 minutes over into the meeting, but
thank you so much.
Alchemist can hang out and answer questions. I hate to abruptly leave like this. I just realized
that's okay.
Overtime on another meeting.
That's okay. Sorry to make you late. Thank you for your time.
No. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, so Mr. Alchemist, you able to hang out and answer a couple more?
Yeah, I can keep going. This is good. This is the first time we've done a straight community AMA. So I'm kind of like fervently writing down all these questions because this is great. These are a lot of questions that we haven't been asked yet, so we haven't had to really define. So this is good. This is a good learning opportunity for us to find out what we're not clear on.
Absolutely. And I really, truly try to engender that environment when I host these shows. And the community is very big on that. They understand that. And I'm so grateful that they always come asking baller questions.
Yeah, I love it. I'm loving all these questions.
All right. So Mahar had a second question that I believe I can answer. They asked what an asteroid run gaming mode would be. The asteroid run gaming mode is essentially the create to earn component of S.T.F.U. If you as a player or crypto investor even wanted to own a level, essentially, you could own, create, and customize a level that other players in the game, both free and blockchain, would be able to play and go up against in the form of your handcrafted challenge on that asteroid. There are, as I understand it, going to be a tokenized reward component to playing asteroid runs. Did I sum that up pretty well?
Yeah, that was a great little summary. And yeah, I'll just kind of expand on the tokenized rewards. Our goal long term is that, kind of going back to your earlier question when you asked it, which is why I was like, I need to get on this chat too. Was that, long term, our goal is to make it so that these asteroid tokenized runs can be user hosted. So we can decentralize the game through user hosting with the NFT ships remaining active, regardless of what we do. I mean, you guys, the community could literally hard fork the game if they wanted to, with the NFTs and the asteroid runs. I hope they don't, but that's centralized blockchain technology. And our goal would be that we route our earned revenue, so our free-to-play revenue goes into the treasury, and then we use that to support on-chain gameplay mechanics, specifically users who create and host their own levels. If you get more people, let's say if you're a streamer, you go online and you're like, hey guys, I made my own asteroid run, come check it out. If you have a bunch of people coming in to play your map, then you're going to see an increase in the revenue that is distributed to you.
Very cool. So in this sense, there's kind of like a Robux reward, right? Where Roblox developers can build game modes or maps or whatever, and then the rewards they get for people playing and spending premium currency can kind of accrue back to the creator.
Yep, except it's, fully decentralized and it's on chain, so you have easy on ramps and off ramps. You get to decide what you want to do with that revenue.
Wow. I heard developers speak for it's going to be better than Roblox, guys, and that's a bold claim.
Went on
Still.
the record with that.
Still, that's awesome. Okay, next question from Buckets. Is there a plan to target players that don't, at current moment, use crypto for their gaming?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Our goal more than anything is to just try and demonstrate to traditional gamers that, this doesn't all need to be scams and Ponzi's. There is some really useful technology from blockchain. And, one of the questions that we get a lot is, for buying and selling assets and stuff is like, why don't you just use a database, a centralized database? And, that has issues too, because it's not visible. It's not open for anyone to see. It's still a closed loop system controlled by a centralized entity such as us. And we just feel like that's kind of antithetical to what we're designing with the lore of the game and with what blockchain gaming should represent. And that is, freely tradable assets. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent.
No, you're good.
The goal is that we will demonstrate to the players over time, how we can kind of demystify this blockchain technology and what the benefits are from having games on it. We're looking at working with a few different partners on, mass minting of and controlling wallets for people, all the kind of Gala Games. There's some other projects that have done that where they kind of control the wallet for you. We're looking at things like that where we can kind of help players come into the space from traditional gaming into blockchain, without those initial concerns. And, I remember the first time I came into blockchain, it was terrifying. I was so worried I was going to send my money to the wrong address and be like, oh, well, there goes that.
Yep.
And, helping players along with that and doing what we can from a user perspective to make it easy, accessible, and safe.
Very good. Buckets' second question. If a player doesn't use crypto for gaming, do you think that the rewards might be enough to onboard these players into the crypto space? Simply put, what type of income would you expect an avid player to earn?
So for the first part, we hope so. We hope that players will see this as not necessarily an opportunity to say, hey, this is how I'm gonna, pay my bills. I kind of think that was one of the biggest issues with Axie Infinity, is they tried to come out as this we're pulling people out of poverty and we're job makers.
As a globally minded guy, that I have to say something on that. That's only possible because state and national governments have printed so much paper money that a crypto token for Axie, like Smooth Love Potion, absolutely trades in a dollar value into someone else's fiat in an incredibly possible sense. And this has all been possible since way before crypto, way before Bitcoin, because games like World of Warcraft and RuneScape have been used as more stable currencies than even, say, the national currency of Venezuela.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just trying to come at this from a place that is, what is fun, what is rewarding. If if I come on and I play a couple times a day on, I'm not an avid gamer, but if I just come on and I play a little bit and I earn a few dollars a day, and I'm able to use that money to kind of reinvest or pull it out if I want to pull it out, it just gives you a little more freedom and flexibility, so that you're seeing that your time spent with a game is not just being lost to the ether. There's actually a functional reward system for taking part in the economy. Again, this skews more heavily towards the create to earn. I think that just pure play to earn it's just kind of hard to sustain, because it just inherently requires somewhat of a Ponzi. You need continuous
new investors to pay out the old.
Yep, exactly. So we want that to be fun and rewarding, but again, the create to earn, the people that are taking part in the community, supporting the community, And then it's just not going to be Asteroid Run owners. You know, it might be someone who has a fleet of NFT ships and they're loaning them out or giving them away, you know, finding ways that we can reward those players. We have the treasury. It's going to be completely visible. All of our finances are going to be on there. You can see how much the game is making, how much is stored in the treasury, and you can see how and when we're allocating those rewards to people in the community that are, you know, so to speak, spreading the gospel and supporting the game. In regards to the max amount that a player could earn, I personally can't answer that at this time, only because we haven't finalized the tokenomics for reward distribution. But we're trying to make it, our goal would be less that, you know, if you get in early and you play every day, you make $100 a day, and then you just massively drain the treasury, and then 3 months later, $1 a day. You know, we would rather be able to approach it from like, okay, let's try to target, if you play this game every day and you're consistent, you know, what is a number, $10, $15, where we can sustain rewarding those players over a long period of time.
And obviously with mechanics such as daily, weekly, regular challenges, win bonuses, there's a number of tools I've seen free-to-play games use over the years to incentivize players to check in once a day or play a game a day or something.
Yeah, we're going to have mixed on and off blockchain play. And we're going to have some web, just straight web browser, WebGL that we're building out right now. The game's in Unreal, and we're kind of porting porting it over to Unity to make a WebGL version. So that will allow players with NFT ships and possibly free-to-play ships. We're looking at how we can make it as continuous for them as well, but initially NFT ships that can go on and, you know, just do simple smart contract missions, conscription missions where you send your ship off to do some stuff and you're kind of playing passively. We're going to implement that as well, because we want players to be able to play really however they want. You're going to have passive investors who just want to passively level up their ship and maybe don't have the time to get in and play the game. And we still want them to be able to be involved in the community and earn rewards.
Okay. That brings us to Usama Anwar. They ask a question that we've already answered, which is what markets are you guys targeting, especially with regards to Asia and India? And obviously, Little Orbit is a global company with a free-to-play history that goes back many years, so they have the infrastructure to support local servers all over the world.
Yep. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll start our rollout, you know, hitting kind of the hot spots of North America and throughout Europe, and then over time, we'll continue to look at where our player base is and add servers where they're needed.
Yes, because I would be remiss if I didn't point out that there are plenty of people in Southwest, Southeast Asia, and New Zealand and Australia who are big gamers, and they love that stuff.
Exactly.
They get shafted on servers all the time.
And we already, you know, and that's the thing, is we already have systems in place and servers pretty much in all the places you mentioned, plus more, for our other games. So it's not going to be a difficult stretch for us to add them to S.T.F.U as well.
Excellent. That brings us to our final questioner. Sammy, will there be any bug bounties?
Yes, definitely there will be. We'll have bug bounties for gameplay. Those will most likely be at their highest reward ratio when we first initially enter our early access and kind of our beta play with the pilot license holders. But obviously we will have ongoing bug bounty white hat rewards. We're very pro rewarding those who find the bugs instead of having to deal with the hackers.
Oh, yeah. And it appears I missed one of Usama's questions. I apologize, Usama. Usama asked, also, will the NFTs and project be backed with any other tokens or assets that we're going to want to know about? The way some projects do, like backed NFTs.
So, this is something that we are looking at, as in holding various assets in our treasury. we'll definitely be doing some partnerships with other games. We already have some lined up that we just haven't mentioned yet. And there's some situations where we're doing some some NFT trades or some token to token trades. We like the idea of kind of giving our treasury a good edge and footing in the crypto space. So having various tokens on top of the S.T.F.U token and USDC, which will be our primary holding. But we haven't come to any conclusions yet. But yes, it is going to be something that we're going to do, and we will provide that information. Ahead of time.
Okay, awesome. Well, that'll bring us to Sammy's final question. Will you be hiring any influencers or bloggers moving forward? I believe this user might be asking for a job.
So we have some initial influencers that we've worked with. We've done a pretty small marketing campaign. As Matt was saying, we kind of like to just build in silence and then just release a game. As we get closer to November, December is when our traditional game marketing is going to start getting going. And then we also will start ramping up our crypto marketing. So we will basically Q4 is when we're going to start lining up and looking at more influencers and more marketing, more ways to kind of spread the news of the game.
Okay. And it looks like I have a... Looks like we...
If you're interested,
contact
us on Discord.
Yes, please. And I would encourage, honestly, in this case, I am encouraging people. I like this project. I think people should go join their Discord if you're interested in a shooter that has an amazing legacy that is going to have a play to earn mechanic. Right now, a lot of it is still in development, so there's only so much they're going to be able to tell us in terms of earning capacity or token value. So if you're a bearish guy and you're wanting to speculate about price action, I don't think we can get any comment out of this team on that right now. But with that said, we have one final question slipping in from Element. Your project sounds like quite the undertaking on the development side. If you have passive free-to-play players that can play as little as they like, won't this simply make the whale's bag bigger at the cost of the little guy?
So that is something that, when I came onto this project, I've been very involved with and played pretty much every, I'm going to say quote unquote game in blockchain space, because as you were talking about earlier, most of them aren't really games. Most of them are designed in the system that, the first to arrive are the ones that can accrue, hold resources, and then have the strongest cumulative value on continuing resource allocation. We're trying to separate that in the sense that we're hoping and we're designing the system so that our hope is that whale accounts will tend to accrue in land ownership versus straight NFT ownership. There's a benefit from having multiple ships because every ship has its own tech tree, it has its own stats, it has its own roles, its own look, its own playability. So, there's a benefit from having more than one ship. But if you're a whale, having a lot of ships, you're not going to have the time to be leveling them up. So you're going to fall behind. So our goal is that the whale accounts will focus on asteroid run ownership, and that they will be more focused on delineating level design out instead of just hoarding assets and accruing all of the resources from our traditional play to earn mechanics. Hope that answers that, but to say the least, it's something that we're very aware of. And when we start getting into November and December and we have our tokenomics set and we're going through, all of our functional play tests to see where value accrues, it's something that we're watching and making sure isn't a huge issue.
And we have another sneaky question from my dear friend Metamorphosis. Good to see you, buddy. As you know, some NFT projects are using big franchises from well-known brands. Do you guys have any plans for collaboration with other games or other brands?
We definitely do. We have a lot of connections in traditional traditional gaming space since we've been a publisher for a really long time. And we already have some projects in various games that we've been looking at doing some cross NFT use. We kind of come up with some cool concepts of, we have a couple projects on the Cosmos ecosystem where we've been looking at how we can send ships on little trips into Cosmos to collect different resources and do some cool NFT exchanges. In regards to, real world marketing, we have some people and some projects in place. We have some partners that we have kind of knocked on the door and got the ball rolling, but nothing official yet. I will say it's something that we have planned.
Okay, awesome. And with that, I thank you so very much for joining us. This has been an incredible conversation.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's been nice. Appreciate all the questions from everybody.
Yes. For everyone listening, I am your host, Nexus. We have been hearing from S.T.F.U. and Little Orbit. That stands for Ships That Fight Underground, a 6 Degrees of Freedom shooter that has one hell of a legacy. Now, I'm going to be going off live here on Twitch in a minute, so any of you guys who are there and you want to join the conversation further, I'm going to be taking a brief 5-minute intermission, and then I'll be coming back to share some of my thoughts about this project with the community and be gauging sentiment. We'll be talking to everyone about what they think, and I'll personally give any stories and thoughts that I've learned in my research about the project. And Alchemist and anyone from Little Orbit is, of course, welcome to stick around for the post-show discussion with the community. But I want to, of course, respect everybody's time. So thank you all very, very much. My name is Nexus. This has been the Wolves of Alt Street with another Ask Us Anything. Please join us on Discord to continue the conversation about really cool crypto projects and various speculative assets throughout the space. As always, I thank you all very dearly, and I will be back in 5 minutes on the Discord.